Morning, you're welcome back to another tutorial section on Introduction to Historiography. In this section, I'll be treating a particular question that deals with the justification of the study of history. So, for instance, if you're given a question as history as the watchdog of the society analyzes the trend of the past, look into the future, and vindicates the just and unjust. Is this characterization of the history of the past historiographically justified? So what I would do if I were to answer this question is to first define history and historiography. So history is a record of the past events that provides us the impetus to appreciate the past, to understand the present and project into the future. All right, so in this regard, I will also define historiography, which is the writing of history, especially the writing of history based on critical examination of sources, the selection of particulars from authentic materials, and the synthesis of particulars into a narrative that will stand the text of critical method. So historiography also is the principles, the theories, and history of historical writing. All right, the Oxford Dictionary defines historiography as the writing of history, written history particularly, and the study of written history, and the ways in which the historians craft, and reconstruct history. So the question, going back to the question again, this question deals with the act of historiography. All right, so is simply require a justification for the study of history. Why do historians engage in reconstruction of the past? What is essential about the past that historians cherish? So without this reconstruction of the past, what would we have lost? All right, so here is my proposition and my analysis. Except history is written using primary sources and other accessible data, humanity's past will be swept into oblivion and swallowed by contemporary development. So it means that it is necessary to document every history as human social formation, human society is continually changing. So it therefore means that people suffer, who has no sense of history. That is to say that it may be contended that where history is lacking, there will be loss of focus and identity, lack of progression. Of, as a matter of fact, there will be ultimate regression in all aspects of life. So there can be no progress except the contemporary society realizes the genesis of its existential problems, all right, by interrogating the past to be able to provide solutions to contemporary existential challenges. So it therefore means that by lack of knowledge of one's cradle, of one's antecedent and past, especially its place in the great stream of human history, the individual is deprived of the fullest sense of purpose and shared community on which personal development and responsible citizenship depend. That is to say that it is imperative for humans to allow antecedent trends and patterns to guide their daily or existential realities or decisions. So without the knowledge of history, human society, people, individuals, will fall into darkness. This means that denied knowledge of one's roots and one's place, of one's place in this in the great stream of human history, the individual is deprived of the fullest sense of self, of that sense, of in terms of shared community values on which one's fullest personal development as well as responsible citizenship depends. So for these reasons, history and the humanities must occupy an indispensable role in the existential realities of people and their society. All right, you understand? So this is the way in which you can justify the question. Although it should be acknowledged that documenting the history of pre-literate society through oral tradition is a difficult task. The historian's craft in interpretation and reconstruction is often affected by a number of issues, the epistemological limitation, the innate subjectivity of the human mental process, the issue of echoes and distortion of oral traditions, all right, in human reciprocitories, all right, according to DP and again, which I've quoted in the previous session I did, feedback, is one of the major problem, in reconstructing the past. It occurs in oral traditions, particularly when extraneous materials usually crept, into written sources, and this affects objectivity. But however, as I've noted, the practice of oral history is based on key procedures, which has to do with the fact that the past events can only be reconstructed from gathered evidences, which are available either in preserved through oral testimonies of people living in the present or the past. So it is also based on the practice of gathering people's traditions, chronicles, and other value systems in society, which are preserved in various performative systems, such as dances, such as proverbs, such cognomen, and others. To note is that in understanding and reconstructing the past, the historians is often faced with several Kulian challenges, which actually prevents the reconstruction of the past. For instance, current problems do not duplicate those of the past. So in trying to understand the past, it is important for the historians to situate his or herself into the epoch, into the period which the historian is writing. A historian trying to understand the nature of modernity or development in pre-literate society could not use the prisms, the lens, or the indices of development in contemporary society to judge or to measure the level of development in pre-literate society. So, essential to extrapolating knowledgeably from history, of the past, all right, requires skills, all right, historiographical skills dependent upon one's understanding of the past. So historians must insert his or herself in the material culture, all right, of a particular civilization or period which is trying to understand. All right, if you're trying to understand the level of development in Africa before the Europeans came to Africa, for instance, historians would not necessarily measure development through the indices of modernity, like maybe science and technology or the use of iPhone, all right, or literacy, just like the way the Europeans did when they penetrated Africa, especially largely in the 19th century, which prompted them to conclude that Africa had no sense of history, that Africa was a place of darkness with barbarous tribes in irrelevant corners of the globe. All right, so modernity cannot be pegged or cannot be defined on the basis of modern development or modern indicators such as in Western education, ICT, or so you need to a historian in trying to understand the past must insert immerse his or herself in the epoch in which he or she is documenting. So it is therefore important to be sufficiently grounded in historical understanding in order to bring sound knowledge, sound historical analysis to the service of informed individuals. All right. So it is important for society, for historians, to have a mastery of what Nietzsche, once termed critical history, and what Gordon Crive explained as the ability, after painful inquiry and sober judgment, to determine, what part of history, is relevant, or what part of the oral sources, all right, will be relevant in the reconstruction of the past that is being interrogated. What this question is about is the justification of history. Why is it necessary to study history? And I've mentioned that denied knowledge of one's roots and one's place in the great stream of human history, the individual, the society is deprived of the fullest sense of self-realization, of identity, of purpose. All right, just like anyone who doesn't know where he or she came from. It will be difficult for he or she to project into the future. Just to put it in a more simply way, as Albert Einstein quoted, says, he said, the significant problem we face cannot be solved without proper understanding of the historical trajectory that brought us to that state. It's therefore important to document every aspect of history of human society to be able to forge a meaningful human existence. Well, I will just wrap up this session by saying that there is always the compelling need to write history, particularly in the view of the unassailable fact that human society is perpetually in transition, which means that dynamism, it is imperative for human society to continue to interrogate the past using the various methodology, and instrumentality, of knowledge that is available in terms of the various sources, either using anthropology, using linguistic, using ethnography, using historical oral traditions, oral evidences, and all of this. It is important for the historians to dig into the past to be able to solve the current existential problems. Except history is written, using available data and written sources, with new evidence as may be assessed, the past of humanity will be swept into oblivion and swallowed up by contemporary development. So this is a very, very key point that you have to note. I will say that again. Except history is written using available data and rewritten with new evidence as may be assessed, the past of humanity will be swept into oblivion and swallowed up by contemporary development. So this means that it means that historians must interrogate the past. It is the solution to human existential problems. Is in lies in critical examination, of the past. All right. So every solution, to human problems in the 21st century or beyond, lies in the past. So I want to give you an example. For instance, during the outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic in 2020, so the World Health Organization, the world was panicking to see, okay, how are we going to survive this devastating epidemic? So, but several institutions in the global north, in America and the UK, sponsored several research, all right, to be able to understand how previous societies, solve similar existential calamities. All right. So, for instance, I remember that I and a few colleagues won a grant, from the AHRC, Art and Humanity Research Council in the UK in 2020, which provided us enough funds to do research on how previous epidemics in Africa were tamed, such as the 1917 Spanish influenza, which was more devastating than even COVID or Ebola. Then there was also the bubonic plague, which broke out in 1924, and other devastating or infectious communicable diseases. So this shows that societies which invest seriously in education and in historical knowledge appreciate that the key to solving human existential crisis lies in strong romance with history. What this means is that the present cannot stand alone except on the threshold of the past. I say that again, that it is incontestable that the present cannot stand except on the threshold of the past, because achievements of the past are not merely known to be celebrated. They are the platform of courage to spur humanity to greater attainment in the present and the future. Okay, so I say that again, for you to have a very strong. I said achievement of the past are not merely to be celebrated; they are to be platform of courage to spur humanity to greater attainment. All right, this is very key, both in the present and the future. Also, no failures of the past are not just to be regretted or allowed to cast humanity down to the abyss of despair and fatalism. No, but they are to embolden mankind, and buoy their confidence to face more critical challenges, which are inevitable realities of life. So, historians, like every other human humans must allow antecedent trends and patterns to guide their existential realities. So any society or people who fail to allow trends and pattern and antecedents, all right, which is no history to guide their decisions, are doomed already. So it is imperative with such spur from past achievement and buoyed confidence from the past failure that mankind is in the present prepared to launch the society to more glorious future with the rich benefit of hindsight. All right, it's important that societies must allow history to inform their policies, their regulations, and their decisions. So it therefore follows that humanity is condemned to lacking knowledge of the means, the modes, and method of sustaining past faith, and to repeating avoidable mistakes of the past, where the art of writing or studying history is neglected. Any society that neglects history or the study of the past, is already doomed. That is what I've mentioned. I'll say that again. I said that humanity is condemned to lacking knowledge of the means, the modes, and method of sustaining past faith. No, if they fail to acknowledge the use of history, avoidable mistakes of the past will be made. All right, so this is a critical point in understanding the justification of history, which the question is all about. Corroborate this assertion, it is also important to say that in such situation where history is neglected, the present generation is vulnerable to being victims of time, and society, as they would not know how they came to be whom, to be whom and where they are. So in such cases, there will be loss of identity, which, if allowed, will ultimately lead to rudderlessness, all right, no lack of focus and retrogression in all departments of life. So I say that again, that in cases where history is neglected, as a matter of fact, this is one of the key points you could use to start this the your sentence. No, I said where history is neglected, there will be loss of identity, which, if allowed, will ultimately lead to rudderlessness, to retrogression, to darkness, and to uh, underdevelopment in all departments of life. So by implication, what this means is that history is imperative to any meaningful effort in the direction of chasing after development. There can be no progress except we realize whom and where we are. So, what factors influence or shaped our current situation, and how, why, and when we found ourselves in the present course? This is important knowledge. No, this important knowledge is helpful and necessary in charting the course for society's growth and designing a never failing compass for contemporary societies and generations to follow. Okay, so you understand this is enough for you to to score a very good point in this question. You need to justify the reason why the study of the past by historian is essential. The Greek word from which history is derived, says that history is meant it means inquiry, in the sense of both process of inquiry, and interpretation of the past. So history deals with the interpretation of the past, one in which a serious effort has been made to filter out myth and fable. So the interpretation of the past is the significant indicator, all right, in providing answers to this. It's not just for the historians to investigate the past, but it is in logical interpretation of the sources, all right, to be able to arrive at the meaningful conclusion. Again, I repeat what I first said, that there is always a compelling need to write history, particularly in view of the unassailable fact that human society is perpetually in transition. Now, this is a very key point for you to justify the act of history. The question again: history as a watchdog of the society analyzes the trend of the past, look into the future, and vindicate the just and the unjust. All right, so there is always the compelling need to write history, particularly in view of the unassailable fact that human society is perpetually in